Hey there, I'm Jonathan. Let's chat. Let's chat today about The Last Jedi. So, I just want to share with you some thoughts, and I want to invite you to be a part of the conversation. I would love for you to comment on what I have to say. I know a lot of you have strong feelings about The Last Jedi. And so please, in the comments, let me know what you think. Spoilers are coming. If you've not seen The Last Jedi, stop this video now. I'm going to reference, or I'm going to link in this video, another video I watched this morning who had very similar thoughts to what I did. And thank you very much for posting that video, and check it out in the comments. He did a far better job than I'm going to do. But I want to just chat with you a little bit about The Last Jedi because, man, I'm a Star Wars fan, and I know a lot of you out there are Star Wars fans as well. And so I want to begin by telling you a little bit of where I stand. First of all, I love Luke Skywalker. I was 2 years old when A New Hope came out, only then it wasn't called A New Hope. I remember the first time I saw it, there was no A New Hope at the beginning of the crawl. It just said Star Wars and jumped right into the crawl. That's how old I am. I remember my dad picked me up from kindergarten and took me to see The Empire Strikes Back. I remember seeing those AT-ATs. More controversy, right? Seeing those AT-ATs, that's what we called them in the 80s. I just remember the impression of that. I remember the impression of the last scene when Darth Vader says, "No, I am your father." I remember asking the question, could it be? Is he really Luke's father? And more on that later. And I'm going to take several videos because I want to begin. I'm going to talk about themes. I'm going to talk about characters. But I wanted to start by just talking about the controversy because this has become very controversial. And you could say it's Disney and Lucasfilm's fault that this has become so controversial because they push us so hard to go see it and to know it and to understand it and to read all the books and to buy all the comics because they want to make money. We can't fault them for that. We all want to make money too, right? We've got families to feed. And so I just want to tell you a little bit. I am a Luke Skywalker hero. I grew up most of my childhood with a yellow lightsaber in my hand. For those of you who are old enough to remember, Luke Skywalker's lightsaber in the toys was yellow to start with. It didn't turn blue until later. They differentiated between his and Obi-Wan's by making Obi-Wan's blue and his yellow. So I'm a Luke Skywalker fan, but here are a few of my thoughts. I loved the movie. I thought The Last Jedi was great. Of course, it's sad to see your heroes die, but a few of my thoughts about this. Again, comment below. I want to hear what you have to say. But first, this trilogy is not about Luke Skywalker. Man, Mark Hamill has said some interesting things about this movie, and Mark Hamill, you have earned every right to say those. You played our hero, you played him well, and I want to say kudos to you, Mark Hamill, that even though maybe you didn't agree with everywhere this story went, you faithfully portrayed this story, and thank you. That, man, I can even look to you as an acting hero now because, man, you as a person did what maybe you weren't excited about doing. And that's one of the things heroes do, right? So Mark Hamill has earned his right to say what he wants to say about this story. And I want to give him kudos for expressing himself, but not publicly decrying in a very negative way what took place. But when we tell stories, it's the storyteller's job to tell us the story. And what's the story they've decided to tell in this trilogy? It's about Rey. It's about Finn. It's about this next generation that's come along. It's actually about Rey and Kylo Ren is who it's really about. Storytellers have to decide who is the main character in our story. There's some real insightful videos on The Walking Dead by this channel called Breaking TWD, and I'll point you there in the comments as well. Because, man, that guy is a guy who's studying filmmaking, and he's kind of describing what's taking place in The Walking Dead based on what he's learning in his filmmaking classes. And it's very insightful about where a story needs to go and those kinds of things. So what we need to understand, this is something he's pointed out, is that when you have your main characters, their arc is the most important arc of the story. And we'll do characters later. But all the other arcs have to support them. And how does Luke Skywalker's arc, support Rey's arc? Well, very much the same way. And I expected this, honestly. Obi-Wan Kenobi's arc supported Luke's in the first trilogy. I was halfway surprised that in the scene at the end that there was not... that when Kylo Ren's lightsaber passed through Luke's image, that Luke didn't disappear. I actually I hadn't figured out the first time I watched the movie that was not really Luke. I halfway expected him to pull an Obi-Wan Kenobi and just vanish and for his cloak to drop to the ground. Of course, in retrospect, they gave us a lot of clues. They gave us the clues of the lightsaber that was broken was the one he was using. His appearance, of course, was different. And then everybody else has pointed to, and I didn't catch this till my third viewing, that Luke's foot did not move the salt after Kylo Ren's had. They really telegraphed it if I'd been paying attention. So that's a big piece. I expected this to happen because this story is Rey's story and it's Kylo Ren's story. It's not Luke's story. And so as a supporting character, he had to, his character arc had to support Rey's arc. And I understand why people are mad that this trilogy isn't about him because, man, he's a hero. But it's not. I think that was made pretty clear to us by the first movie. So the second thing I was thinking about is it's important for us to understand people fail. I'm a pastor. That's what I do in my day job. And if there's anything I've learned, it's that as a pastor, it's that really good people make really bad decisions sometimes. I've sat across my desk from people who I know and love and have invested my life in their life, and their lives have been invested in what's important to them and in their marriages and in their families and in our church. And I've watched them make awful decisions. And then we've had to work through the repercussions of those things. And we talk about how to find forgiveness and how to restore hope. And so a really important message, of course, of this movie was we let the rest of we can either, when we fail, we can do one of two things. We can either let the rest of our lives be defined by that failure, or we can find redemption. And so the really cool part of Luke's story, and this is beautiful about failure, is that he found redemption. He decided that he was going to give his life for the Resistance and for Rey and for Kylo Ren. And so he gave his life for his friends, which is what he's been willing to do throughout the Star Wars story. Why did he leave Yoda the way that Rey left him in this story? He left Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back because he wanted to go take care of his friends. And then the third thing that I want us to understand is, and this was pointed out in that other video that I'll reference in the notes, but all of us have been waiting for 34 and a half years to see Luke Skywalker again. And you know what we've been doing as we've been waiting? Now, a lot of us have been reading fiction that's now been made legends, but all of us have been writing our own story about what the next trilogy would be, and none of us left Luke Skywalker out of the biggest part of the next trilogy. And so, man, we were disappointed. I learned this toward the end of the Lost television series. I was a big fan of Lost. I for every hour of TV, I'd listen to 4 to 6 hours of podcasts about it. And one of those podcasts I listened to was the executive producers, Hughes and Lindelof. And they did this really cool podcast where they talk about things behind the scenes. In the last few weeks of the Lost series, they went radio silent. But before that, they said something really interesting. You see, they had been reading the posts of fans. They'd been reading some of the fan fiction, some of the ways, there'd be fans who would say, this is the way Lost ought to end. And they said something really interesting. They said, listen, fans, we want you to understand you're going to be disappointed by the end of Lost. They were right? And they said this, because we've read some of your endings, and some of your endings are way better than our ending. But we're the storyteller, and we've had this ending in mind from the very beginning, and so we have to be faithful to our ending. And so I want you to understand that we're trusting Lucasfilm to tell this story. And I'm okay if the story doesn't come out like I wanted it to. Now, those of you who aren't, you have that right. There was a lot of really good Legends material that that didn't turn out the way this is turning out. Now I think some of the things, and we'll talk more about this in a character video, but I think some of the things about Snoke's backstory and things like that, I think those will be covered. Why? Because they want us to buy books and comic books. I think we'll see Snoke's backstory told. I think it's hinted at in the novels that come between Return of the Jedi. The novels that come between the aftermath novels, between the end of Return of the Jedi and the beginning of Episode 7. So I think that's been hinted at, and I think we'll see it. Now here's my big concern. This stems back to Lost. Here's my big concern. They're handing Episode 9 to J.J. Abrams. J.J., I'm going to make an appeal to you. I love your work. I love the mysteries that you make us ask, and I just want to ask you, JJ, be very careful how you end this trilogy. I'm guessing this is going to be the very end of the Skywalker saga. I'm guessing that Luke's story, Anakin's story, is going to come to an end with the end of this trilogy. My guess is the next trilogy that Rian Johnson's already working on is going to be something totally different that doesn't in any way involve the Skywalkers. It might involve them in a disconnected way. And so, JJ, be careful. We're dependent on you. We trust you. We're handing you the baton. And I trust you, but I want to ask you to very carefully land this because, man, this has been a great story. And I'm going to trust you until I see differently. But please, JJ, do a great job. So those are a few of my thoughts. Let's chat. Let me know. Let me know what you think. Let me know what it is that you wish would have been done differently. Let's talk. Let's chat about one of our favorite movies. Oh, and I almost forgot. Subscribe. Push that little bell button so you'll know when I get my next video posted. Thank you for your time. I'm Jonathan. Come see us again. Let's chat again soon.